From Los Angeles, the home of film and television, this is Film Music Live, a webcast featuring outstanding composers, orchestrators, filmmakers, and more from the world of music for film, television, and video games, talking about their work and answering your questions. Film Music Live is sponsored by the Film Music Network and Film Music Institute. And now the host of Film Music Live, Daniel Schweiger.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Schweiger, and welcome to Film Music Live, the show where you get to ask the questions to today's top composers and filmmaking artists. I'm happy to have you here. In the most murderous attack on Jews since the Holocaust, over 1,000 Israelis were slaughtered and hundreds kidnapped during the Hamas assault of October 7th. But if that wasn't bad enough, it was only the beginning of a wave of homegrown anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli hatred unleashed in college campuses the very next day, which makes for the telling title of October 8, best pronounced October Hate. Like the most powerful documentaries that make for a disturbing, much-needed revelation, director Wendy Sacks has compellingly assembled footage and interviews with such figures as actress Deborah Messing, Congressman Richie Torres, and Jewish student leaders under siege. But like all documentaries with a searing point to make that must be heard, no small amount of October 8's power comes from its impassioned, driving an inescapably tragic score, as composed by the Israeli-born SHARON FARBER, with her past music observing When Nietzsche Wept, being part of the impactful concert work Woman Warriors, and beautifully hearing the humanism of Jacob the Baker. SHARON FARBER is perfectly chosen on many fronts to score October 8. It's captivatingly emotional music for an eye-opening film about events long in the planning before an infamous date. And now here to talk about putting words and music to the date of October 8 is director Wendy Sacks, composer SHARON FARBER, and music supervisor Bonnie Greenberg. Welcome to Film Music Live, everybody.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's great having you here.
Thanks for having us, Daniel.
Thank you. Now, Wendy, this is your second film directing a documentary, and I can only imagine, how many documentaries you watched, before that even happened. For you, what does a good documentary score do, and what kind of score did you want for October 8th?
Listen, I think music is the oxygen of a film, and particularly something like this one. I wanted something that was going to be emotive, but not overpowering, something that would help drive the story and make people feel, but also sort of be measured enough to not manipulate, right? And I think that SHARON did an exceptional job. I mean, the music is just unbelievable. It's a beautiful score. It hits all of the points, and it sort of helps move along and progress this film, which is so robust. There's so much baked in here. We're switching gears so often, and I think SHARON's score just helps an audience move through the amount of material we have in just such an elegant way.
Now, Bonnie, I guess you're probably the first person who came onto this musically. You've had an amazing, resume like Pleasantville, My Best Friend's Wedding, and you've been actually doing quite a few documentary films lately. When you saw the rough cut of the film, Bonnie, what did you think the music needed to do, and how did you want to go about helping Wendy cast the composer of this movie?
Well, I came on before we had a rough cut. I saw some footage though, right, Wendy? There was some footage. We talked about it at length because Wendy was still figuring out how she was going to tell the story and what, but we knew no matter what, there were going to be all these different areas of things that are going to be united. And that was important, that the score was going to have to sort of tie everything together, because she was going to be sharing so much information from so many sources that it would be easy to get lost, kind of. Or get overwhelmed by all this incredible information and footage she had shot, and she was still shooting. And so we knew it had to be someone who really knew how to tell a story with emotion, but not drag you down, to also bring joy when there was joy. And ideally, it would have been nice to have someone Israeli who could really, who could really relate to the storytelling and kind of feel it in their soul. Different connection to the material. at a very deep, visceral level.
Right. I mean, Sharon, when this movie came your way, was this like something, I have to score this film? Was it like essentially almost like a duty of you to score this film?
Wait, can I just add one more thing, Daniel? I had run into Sharon at a
Yes.
peace organization about 5 months earlier. Excuse me. And I was talking to someone else about scoring the film, and I said to Sharon said, "You have to let me do this film. This is in my blood. This is my this. I live for the." And we had a very big conversation about it at this event. And I said, I'm so sorry I didn't call you. I thought you were busy. But you know what? If anything happens, you're my first phone call. I will call you, and I promise you, you will get to do this movie.
Sharon, what
And
was
she
your
did.
reaction to October
And
8th?
and actually, I was in Israel at the time
Yeah.
when Bonnie called me about this film, and she arranged a meeting, a Zoom meeting with Wendy and the team. I think Nimrod, who's the producer and editor, one of the producers and editors, was also there. And this is a very hard time for Israelis and for Jews, not only in the world, but also in this industry. And sometimes you just come across a project that feels so right to you to try and help tell what really happened. And it's extremely hard to do it. And especially the first scenes were very hard for me to score, extremely hard for me to score, because there are footage from that night, from that day, from October 7th. And of course, I was here on October 7th, and I was following everything. And last, like a lot of Israelis, Israel is so small. It's the size of New Jersey. So there's no really a way for you not to know someone who either got murdered or got kidnapped. And that was, the case for me. Not only did one of my best friends' son was one of the first to be murdered, also my niece and nephew lost 4 or 5 friends at the Nova Festival, which is it was a peace-loving, festival. So when I got there, the film, I started thinking about how can I make a score that on the one hand will be orchestral, but not too orchestral. So it will also have modern elements, and plus would have the emotional impact that we need in order to tell the story. And I came up with this one melodic idea that is the main theme for the movie. And most of the other stuff was derived from that melody. But I also had a certain melody, excuse me, and sound for all the interviews, because I felt all the interviews were connected. And we also had a theme for the personal stories of the people who were interviewed. So I tried to, and I think that's what connected everything, because these themes, as film scores should do, repeated in different orchestration, different sounds, different way, but it connected, because what does music do? It works on the subconscious of the audience. So even if the audience doesn't consciously say, "Oh, I have heard it," subconsciously they know that they've heard it, and they already feel connected. So that's how we started. And I started working with Bonnie, sending her music before we sent it to Wendy to get her position of it, and also Jennifer Smith, who was also helping on this film. And it was a pretty smooth ride regarding the music, I must say. I think Bonnie said, I've scored so many films, and usually we have so many notes, but we didn't really have a lot of notes, except for the last cue.
that they wanted something different, and I did something different, and somehow nobody heard it. So Bonnie said, let's have a Zoom meeting, and we did, and I played that for everybody, and everybody was like, yeah, that's really great. It's really perfect. It's one of the pieces that I recorded with the orchestra.
That kind of brings us to our first question from Louis Versinelli. This kind of goes to all of you. When it comes to the music for a documentary, who decides what type of music and how much is needed on a collaborative effort? How, Wendy and Bonnie and Sharon, how did the process work?
Well, we went through the film together with our whole edit team. Inbal Lesnar was also a part of that. We were going scene by scene. We already had temp music in the film, and we actually really liked a lot of the temp music that was in the film. One of our, our other lead editors, Nimrod Erez, really scored most of it before Sharon came on board using temp music. And we liked a lot of that. And we wanted to retain some of that integrity. And basically asked Sharon, can you do something like this, but make it better? And then we also went scene by scene just to figure out how much we need and realize we don't need as much, but actually maybe we do. So it is a collaborative effort. It's very much a work in progress the entire time. But I think what Sharon was saying before about trying to maintain the threads, the story threads, and have music that helps the audience recognize and remember sort of going back to a storyline is super important. And I think she did that very effectively. And we were all on the same page about that. I mean, I think overall we were on the same page about what kind of music it was going to be, what kind of music we didn't want. We didn't want it to be too saccharine and too overbearing, but we wanted it to strike a chord and let an audience know also when we were making the pivots in the story. We were moving in a timeline also that we needed to remind people of where we were. The pacing of the film is very brisk, and to also keep music that would accompany the sort of the rapid speed fire of the film without exhausting anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, Daniel, I mean, I think the thing is, in terms of the more broader question you're asking, as a general rule, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and as I teach, it's a director's vision at the end of the day who's in charge, and it's subjective, and everyone has opinions, excuse me, and hopefully we're all on the same page. But at the end of the day, if there's a question, it's going to be whatever Wendy felt. And we worked very, very hard on temping the music for a really long time, Nimrod, myself, Jen. And so I had a very, very good sense of Wendy's sensibilities. So early on, when Sharon and I started working on some things before we even let Wendy hear, I'd kind of been through enough of the stuff in the temp and the different scenes to know what was really important to Wendy, which still doesn't mean we'll hit a home run. Wendy could still not like something for, melody reasons or notes, but I knew philosophically what things mattered to Wendy, where she wanted to hit something big, where she wanted it emotional, stay away from saccharin, not using electronics, like a lot of things. So we had so Sharon was able to start like with a little bit of some parameters of getting a sense, and Wendy was able to come from that. And when we spotted the music, Wendy was able to really clearly say, we would go through it with the temp, and I would constantly bring up, well, do you like the way this is working here? And Wendy would very clearly articulate to Sharon what worked about it and what didn't work about the temp, because we also had issues of where we were going to use orchestra, where we weren't, and those things had to be figured out too. But the spotting session was very, very effective in terms of using the temp, talking about the temp, and Wendy very clearly kind of explaining what was working and what wasn't working for her.
I wanted to just piggyback on that. I think there's definitely a mind meld when it comes to music, and I'm not a musician. So and Bonnie was just so great when I would say, I can't tell you what the instrument is that I'm not liking. I just don't like this. And she was like, that's fine. You don't need to tell me. And I'm not the person who could be like, fewer strings here, or like, let's have like a drum beat here. Like, I'm not telling you at that sort of micro level. I could just say, oh, wait, I really like this. Whatever you did here in the temp was great. It's driving it. It feels good. I like it. Let's do this. And she was like, great, got it. You don't need to be a musician to help analyze it. You can just tell me if you like it or you don't like it.
Right, and I was going to translate the thing to you. Sharon, I would constantly say it's not
like for you.
It's not about. Oh, sorry.
Let's have Sharon.
Go ahead.
I was saying I would constantly say to Wendy, don't worry about having to communicate in music. Just say what You want what the audience should feel. And I'll help translate that term. Don't worry, we'll figure it out. You don't have to say it's a C flat major or something like that.
And I never did.
Right.
Like
From
for
my
you.
own experience, I must say, from my own experience, it sometimes makes it harder if the director has a little bit of musical knowledge and they try to tell you what to do musically, but they don't have enough of that knowledge. It makes it harder. So I rather be communicating like, tell me how you feel. Is it too sad? Is it too fast? Is it too happy? Is it not emotional enough? So all these elements I can translate to what I think needs to be happening in the score. And also, in regards to documentaries, you have to be very careful because there's so much dialogue. There's not always room to be, for example, big, and unless there's something that has like a scene that has no dialogue, and that's pretty rare in documentary. In this film, I must say there were definitely places where the music could take over, and especially like when we got into the main title and you see October 8th, and the way that they did it is so amazingly smart. And I really wanted the music to follow what was going on with the letter A, with the number 8 that it was coming down the screen. And I really wanted to bring a cello in to enhance that feeling of sorrow, and I used that solo cello over there. And I think when I heard it and I saw it together, because I was also when we did the dub I was there. It was so great because we can all say, oh, maybe we need a little bit more music or less music over here, and just such a wonderful collaborative effort on everyone's behalf, which sometimes it's harder, but with these powerful women, it was just a wonderful experience. So thank you both.
Oh, thank you. Now we've got another question from Ivan. Obviously, there's a lot of really difficult stuff to watch in this movie, but what was the most difficult sequence for you in this whole movie, respectively, to get musically right?
So many of the scenes were so hard to score. As I said, especially the beginning was extremely hard to score because I had to relive these moments again and again and again while scoring, and it's just heartbreaking. There's one scene there that it's like in the Holocaust when they're opening up the ovens and you have bodies of people who were burned to death, and babies were put in the oven and burned to death, and it was just so hard to somehow move beyond the emotions and try to score it in a way that is not too sad, because it's already overwhelming. And at one point you have to like numb yourself in order to do that. There was a scene there in someone who's very anti-Jew and anti-Israeli at the colleges, and he's like, I feel that Jewish people they deserve to die. They deserve to die. I was like, I've never done any wrong to anyone. Why should I die? Why should I die? Why should these beautiful women die just because we are born to a Jewish faith? And it made me so angry. I just like, I had to be like breathing in and just say, okay, Sharon, this is this person's opinion, but there are people who are standing with us. And that's, I think, the relief, a little bit of relief at the end of the movie when you see that there are people who are standing with us and think, no, this is not okay. This is not okay to this hatred and this violence is not okay. And that's the end scene. And that kind of gave me a little bit of hope at the end to know that we are not alone. But it was very tough. There were many scenes that took me a while to get beyond what I'm seeing and dig into my soul and say, how do you do that without crying all the time, without being so overwhelmed by what you're seeing? It was very, very tough. And I scored many documentaries before, but never like that. There was one documentary that I scored. You know what, we won't talk about it, but there was one more documentary that I scored that was very hard for me, but this was so personal that it was even harder.
Right.
I hope
Let's talk about, Bonnie, you worked in movies with many iconic songs. Let's talk about the last song on the soundtrack, Note for Note. And again, a shout out to Note for our awesome copies, and to Peter Hackman at Note for Note.
Yes, thank you so much, Brian and Peter. Thank you so much.
Well, I have to say, the song was an interesting challenge, as Wendy could tell you about. We found many people who remain nameless who did not want to be involved with the movie, who were worried about the backlash that they would get for standing up for a film like this. Not unlike, Michael Rappaport talks about in the film, like, where are all the big celebrities? We experienced the same thing with songwriters and artists. And Wendy and I think Sharon might have been there too, and Jennifer, we were at Community for Peace organization, the Black Jewish Alliance.
Creative, CCFP.
And I was sitting there, and I saw this woman sitting, and I saw this woman, and I was reading the manual, what the different people involved, and I read the manual and went, oh my God, Autumn Rowe is part of this? I wonder if she would write this song, because she's an incredible songwriter, and I thought, if she's part of this organization, maybe she'll really connect to this film, and she won't be afraid, and she won't be like all these other people. And so I called her up the next day, and she said, let me see. And I sent her the film, and she said, I am so in. And then, we talked to Wendy about what the song should be about. We set up a Zoom. Wendy told her about the things that were sort of important to her. Autumn had her ideas. Autumn apparently had been in Israel the year before and had these words that kept sticking with her, which she used in, this whole song. And she wrote this amazing, spectacular song, which we originally were then going to go to Superstar Artist. And again, with politics and with this, Autumn's a beautiful singer. We let her sing the song. The song is incredibly inspiring. It should be everywhere now, just what's happening in the world, forgetting what happened in this movie. For everyone, the message of the song is incredibly powerful.
I'm Wendy.
I also just want to jump in and say, the inspiration for that closing song really came from the movie Selma and the song Glory. That was, I love that song so much. I remember staying after I watched Selma and I was like, who wrote this song? I mean, it was unbelievable. And it was Common and John Legend. And it was like this incredible sort of vibe. And I said to Bonnie, okay, that's what I want. Can you do? And then we went to Black gospel. We went down this path of like, can we do like a Black gospel kind of thing? Like that would be amazing. And then coincidentally with Autumn, who happens to be Black and Jewish, she had been writing lyrics to a song and it had a similar vibe to what I was looking for. And the first time I listened to that song, I was actually with our editor producer Nimrod, and we were playing it and we both started crying at the same time. It was very emotional. It was
just
beautiful.
To be clear that she hadn't. Yeah, just to be clear, Daniel. Yeah, so Wendy had told me that, which is why when I saw Autumn's name, I knew she wrote that kind of music. I thought, oh my God, she'll be perfect. She didn't have lyrics to a song she'd written before. She just had a lyric in her head when she was in Israel. One line. What's the line, Wendy? It's the end of the song. I'm sorry, I'm my brain dead.
About Jerusalem.
Yeah,
that's the line where I started crying.
Yeah, she had this line in her mind. Someday I'm going to put this into a song. And then when she watched the movie, she went, "Oh my God!" It like spoke to her instantly. And yeah, Wendy said that I cried when I first heard this song. Sharon cried. Jennifer Smith cried. We all. It was like she hit such a home run. I don't even think we had any notes, did we? I think we might have changed one word.
I think we took it as is, yeah.
And I probably worked on 100 movies. I've never had a song where we didn't give notes to a demo. We're constantly giving notes.
How important is, I mean, we're in times where it just seems we're just faced with just complete insurmountability, but especially in this movie, how important is the idea of optimism and conveying optimism in the music?
To me, it's very important. I mean, I wanted to end the film on optimism I always say at all of the Q&As, I'm asked that a lot. You end on hope. Was that intentional, or why did you decide to go in that direction? And I always say I really didn't want people wanting to jump out of a window after watching this film. We just don't want it to be so dark. It's a heavy subject. Obviously, we're opening on, the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. There's a lot to digest. And I wanted to show the allyship at the end, and to show the empowerment of the young people, and to end on hope. And it sort of naturally does. And it comes out of that Deborah Messing interview that we did pretty early on in production, where she ends about Hatikva, which is about hope. And I think that we wanted the music to mirror that feeling, that message, that sensibility. So after a dark film, with a lot to digest and to absorb, you're ending on some light. And I think Sharon did that beautifully with the score. And, there's a crescendo at the end, and it's building and it's building, but we wanted it to be very beautiful. And I think what you see from audiences, and I've screened this around the world, people are tearing up, people are sitting, there's silence in the theater. People are not jumping out of their seats. They are just really sitting and marinating in, I think, the music and in the message and what they've just watched for the past 100 minutes.
And also, Daniel, that's what Autumn's song, and I remember now, that was the phrase, was "Have you seen my light?" That she wanted to really hold on to.
Sharon, how important is optimism to you, especially to you?
I'm just saying, "Have you seen my light?" is also the name of the song.
Right, and that was all about believing in, finding the light in the darkness. That no matter what happens in the world, to believe in light and find the light, and that was what her song was also about. And that was the phrase she thought when she was in Jerusalem. Have you seen my light? Like, through all this darkness, we have to find our light.
Right. But back to Sharon, again, the idea of optimism for you while working on this.
I'm basically a very optimistic person in my life. I'm smiling most of the time. I'm very optimistic. But of course, it's hard to be optimistic when you see all the hatred in the world, in America, in Europe, and it's so sad that this is where we are. And almost 80 years after the Holocaust, the whole thing repeats again. They say history repeats itself. I guess maybe there's truth to that. For me, look, the thing for me, optimism is very, very important. But I didn't know when I started watching the film, I didn't know how it's going to end. So when I saw the ending, I could breathe a little bit, and I wanted to help elevate this last part. And that was also very clear by Wendy, that she didn't want people to get out of the theater all depressed. She wanted them to take in the current situation, but to know that we can fight this, fight in a good way, and bring people together. And for me, the most, I think, optimistic thing was to see the young people who are courageous, who are brave, to say, I don't deserve this. I just don't deserve it. And I have so much to give to the world. And these people, really, they have so much to give to the world. So seeing them being so brave, you tell yourself, how can I not be brave when they are on the front line, basically, trying to go to school and not able to, only because they're Jewish. It doesn't matter that they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to a college or university. They're blocked from going to their classes. It's ridiculous. It's just outrageous. But they are strong. And they fight this, and they fight with conviction and with belief in their own truth and what they believe in and what they want to give to the world. And I felt what Wendy was really talking about, and also Bonnie helped me on this one, was to, as she said, to go up and rise and rise. And it's like rising from the ashes of the Holocaust into a new day. this new day hasn't come yet, but we can see the seeds with these young people that are brave, and how this can be blooming one day to hopefully a world where Jew hatred or any kind of hatred is not part of the lexicon of human beings. It's just so stupid, so I this was the only scene, the only musical cue that did not actually have any connection to the rest of the film. So the rest of the film was all these 2 or 3 themes that were repeating and repeating, but this was something new because we are in a new chapter of hope, and it rises and rises and rises and it goes to the top with this crescendo. But then at the end you do have a slide with those who were murdered, and for that I brought back the solo cello to end it on this lonely note, because in a way we are all lonely, but we still have this light that we have together, if that makes sense.
So I'm going to wrap up the show on a much more optimistic point. Again, Wendy, congratulations on just how well this movie is done. It's still in theaters here and there. It's now streaming in Amazon. What's up ahead next for you all? Wendy, what can we expect next after this?
Oh, I love that question. We're starting a new project. It's almost a follow-up to October 8, and it's called Poison Ivy, and it's about academia. And it's, I think the theme to October 8 was, how did we get to this moment where Hamas is being celebrated as freedom fighters rather than condemned as terrorists? And that's what we unpacked. And this Poison Ivy is really, how did we get to this place in academia where anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is thriving? And it's not just university campuses. We're looking at K through 12, and we're looking at the foreign funding coming from abroad and that impact that we're seeing in ethnic studies departments and all sorts of things. So that's the next project. We're starting production this summer, and we're getting a great response to it so far.
Bonnie, what's up next for you?
I'm in the middle of a couple of things. Main things I'm starting is a film about music in the school, music and bringing music to public schools in both in America and in Africa, and also a documentary about Laura Nero. But I'm producing both of those.
And Sharon, what can we expect?
So I just finished a film called Baima Boy, which is a Chinese documentary with a production company in France and in America. It was quite a ride, but I just finished it on Saturday. I'm currently scoring a film for Tyler Perry for Amazon MGM. I'll probably be recording sometimes in the next few weeks, and it's a romantic comedy. So I'm really happy about it because I've been scoring these depressing movies for a while. And now I have a romantic comedy, which is all orchestral, and I can, write beautiful melodies and, some fun stuff. And I also have, about 2 years ago, I got a commission from Juilliard School of Music to write a piece for solo guitar. And I added string quartet, and we are working now on a film that is based on the music. It's about 9 minutes film that will have some animation, and it's also about dementia. And it's really. So I'm basically done because I wrote the music already and recorded it. We recorded at the Village Studios. It was wonderful. And there are a few things that I'm waiting to hear about, so I can't talk about them right now. And I'm going to Italy every year. I teach film music in Italy every year, so I look forward to that. And that's for now. My plate is full, and I'm very, very grateful.
Well,
And
I'm
Dan, I have 2
grateful.
documentaries actually coming out in the next couple of months.
Well, I'm very grateful to all of you for making October 8th. Sharon, Bonnie, Wendy, I just want to thank you so much for joining us at Film Music Live. See October 8th. It's streaming now with Sharon Farber's soundtrack available on Note for Note Music. And thanks to Peter Hackman at Note for Note for our digital promotions today. Our show producer, Dale Turner, and graphic designer, Mark Banning. And I'll see you on the next Film Music Live on May 12th at 1 p.m. as composer Brandon Roberts talks about putting his musical spin on Star Wars for the 2nd season of Andor. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Danielle.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.